Welcome back, viewers. Once again, NatStrat team, Shantanu Mukharji and Sheikh Kumar, we have assembled here. This time, we plan to converse on the role of foreign powers in Bangladesh. As we all know, Bangladesh is growing rapidly, whether on the economic front, its relations with the external powers are increasing, its diplomatic activities are on the rise. It's going to hold elections, as we discussed in detail. So we'll discuss what is the role of a set of foreign powers which are taking extraordinary interest in Bangladesh, whether it is election watching or their growth, or whatever it is. So we begin with China, because there had been reports for the last several years that China has been evincing keen interest in activities of Bangladesh. Maybe it is trying to woo, maybe it is trying to wean Bangladesh away from India. We don't know, whatever. There are also reports about presence of a particular pro-China lobby in Bangladesh, in the government as well as in the party, who wants Bangladesh to cultivate China more than it cultivates India. So that is may not be of concern, because Indo-Bangla relations are at their best at this moment. So there is nothing, yet it cannot be overlooked, and I'm sure you agree with that. And some time back, 7-8 years ago, there was a thing of a submarine deal between China and Bangladesh, which caused alarm, and whether there is going to be a defense cooperation between the two. So these are certain concerns or developments which need to be allayed or need to be addressed. So, Kumar Sahib, we'd like to know your thoughts on China's attempts to befriend Bangladesh or to woo Bangladesh.
Well, I think China's activities in Bangladesh are of a piece with China's larger, relations in South Asia. They fit into that larger pattern. You did mention, you referred to China's attempts to increase its influence in India's, what has been considered India's traditional sphere of influence, if I may use the expression, and that there has been an increase in this phenomenon in recent years. I think that is absolutely correct, and it is perhaps this goes back actually many years. It's not as recent a phenomenon as is sometimes made out to be. I think for a very long time, China has invested a lot of resources in our periphery to, in a sense, undercut Indian influence, and that is really no great secret, whether it is in Pakistan or whether it is in Nepal or Sri Lanka or of course with the Belt and Road Initiative that China has, the BRI project that China has undertaken, which is a large infrastructure building exercise throughout the world. These efforts have in fact gathered perhaps added momentum. So I think it's also a fact that in the past, perhaps more than in the past, China is no longer apologetic about its efforts to cultivate influence in India's immediate neighborhood. So that having been said, I mean, you talked of the defense sphere. It is a fact that traditionally China has has a dominant role in Bangladesh's defense relationships for historical reasons. We have, for instance, India has, for a number of reasons, fought shy of exporting defense equipment to Bangladesh and so on and so forth. So China has a traditional influence in the defense sector in Bangladesh.
I'm sorry for stopping you, Mr. Kumar, here, but is it a cause for worry for the Indian defense establishment or Indian policymakers?
I think the larger point is that with all her vast experience, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is more than aware of these dynamics, and I think she has been careful to ensure that no country, whether it is China or whether it is the West or any other country, sort of assumes a preponderant sort of influence in the external sphere. So I think that is where that is how I would look at the entire China factor. It is a matter of some concern. After all, we should not be, we should be able to protect our legitimate equities in Bangladesh, and we don't want any external powers to sort of exercise an unhealthy degree of influence there.
Yeah, so if, like you said, Sheikh Hasina herself is aware that that space should not go to China, at the cost of India, if I have understood you correctly, in that case, then it should not be a matter of real concern for us, isn't it? But she undertook a visit in 2019 before coming to India, and she prevailed upon the Chinese to prevail upon Myanmar to take back the refugees with the foreign minister, Chinese foreign minister Wang Yi promised, but he did not do anything. And there was also mention of, I'm sorry, I'm taking you back to history also, because it was mentioned in the bilateral talks there that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in early 50s, 51 or 52, he paid a visit to China. The Awami League and Chinese Communist Party, they entered into some kind of understanding. But this was there from Bangladesh side, or then erstwhile East Pakistan side, there were attempts to be friendly. But China, we must remember, historically speaking, was recognized Bangladesh as a free and sovereign country only in 1975, much later after Sheikh Mujib was assassinated. So these factors are there, yet maybe part of realpolitik they are moving on. I hope I'm clear.
No, I think that's a very valid point. There is a historical context also to all this, and let us not forget that you talked about China according diplomatic recognition to Bangladesh only in 1975. There was a history to it. China was not reconciled to the breakup of Pakistan, erstwhile Pakistan. So they did take their time to recognize Bangladesh, and they did that only after the tragic events of 1975. So yes, there are historical memories, historical aspects, and those of course do count. I would agree with you on that score.
Because I also find perhaps China, you understand better, is trying that Bangladesh doesn't become too close to the new equation of Quad, the US, Australia, Japan, and it doesn't fall into that. So maybe they're just trying. These are all political things, and I think we should be more careful in view of Chinese interference or involvement into many things like brokering deals between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and trying to take. Very recently, we saw Pakistan, Afghanistan getting a reaffirmation on the BRI and all kind of things. So there we notice that in the region there is a kind of diplomatic assertion by China. And since we are discussing Bangladesh and the role by the external powers, so China is one thing I personally feel as a security professional that we should be more vigilant so that Bangladesh continues to be more close to us than China. Diplomatically, it is all right. That is my thoughts. In case you wish to enlighten more on this, and fine. This is one thing. So, China, Mr. Kumar, see, we got it. You made your point very well. We come to the US. It is how it is viewing Bangladesh. To my recollection, US was not very, apparently not very happy with the election results, last election results 5 years ago in Bangladesh, because it questions the neutrality or the fairness. And then always been some pinpricks there on Bangladesh, and the country which had after independence, it had said that it was a basket case and it supported Pakistan for creation of Bangladesh. Now we see of late that it is trying to send overtures to befriend Bangladesh. Very recently, Sheikh Hasina paid a visit to the US, but at the same time, it's slightly diabolical, if I may say so, is there that, Rapid Action Battalion and other paramilitary forces in Bangladesh, US has been imposing sanctions on them, which is very arbitrary and human rights abuses. But it must be said to the credit of Sheikh Hasina that she had protested against that and made it very clear. She listed out the human rights abuses carried out by the US, and still it is pointing fingers towards Bangladesh. So would like to know from you, what are your free thoughts on the US-Bangladesh relations?
Well, I would tend to largely look at it from the security point of view. You're absolutely right. Issues like, the so-called, democracy deficit, which is an expression that is used by the US and other Western countries, human rights, etc. These have been the constant pinpricks, in the relationship. The demand for the caretaker government, as we mentioned, has come from the US and other Western countries, or has been supported by them. We also talked of the Jamaat, for instance, in the first part of our conversation. And, this view that it is better to have the Jamaat inside the tent than outside is a typically American kind of view. So there has been the relationship between the US and the Awami League, for instance, also has never been a very comfortable relationship because of all these factors. There is also a view, in fact, since we were discussing China, that to some extent, Sheikh Hasina has also used, China as a bit of a counter to the US, which is seen as when the Western countries are bullying, seeing as exerting unhealthy or pressure on her and on her party. You talked about the sanctions on the Rapid Action Battalion. Now, it's all that I can say is that you have to look at some of these things, I think, in the context of the ground realities, and having arbitrary or unrealistic standards, I think don't really serve any purpose. The Rapid Action Battalion, as we are all aware, is the elite counter-terrorism force of Bangladesh. And based on my experience, I can say that in the context of some of the difficulties that, the challenges that we have faced in the region, organizations like the RAB have proved their utility, and they have done I would say an excellent job.
Yeah.
And some of the terrorist organizations, the terrorist modules, the networks that they have put out of action, I dare say, have been as much a threat to Bangladesh and India and the rest of the region as they are to even the Western countries. So I think some of the sanctions imposed on the RAB, etc., are, to my mind, somewhat misplaced. And I think there are other ways of, getting the maximum professional output from organizations like the RAB.
So, you said that Army League, US has never been comfortable with Army League, and that is a historical fact. There's no denial about it. It is there. But with that argument, can we assume, conversely, that by default, US is pro-BNP, or it is trying to support Hasina's political adversaries? Just as an analyst, how do you feel about it? So that we can arrive at some kind of thing that we are discussing external powers, what is their attitude, their stance towards Bangladesh?
Well, let me put it this way. I think in the Awami League circles, there is certainly a view that the US and the Western countries are perhaps better disposed towards the BNP and its allies. So it is a perception, that does
and
exist.
I think it is not wide off the mark also. But at the same time, I must say, and like you say, dare say, if you disagree, then fine, but because it's a very animated discussion we have generated here, the conversation, is that one of the Mujib killers is in hiding in the USA. Against all opposition, it must be said, to the credit of the Army League-led government, particularly Sheikh Hasina, to be raising her voice time and again and asserting that he should be repatriated. This is one. Number two, I noticed from the media, that there had been attempts, say, the former Grameen Bank chief, that he should be allowed to participate in the elections and concession should be made. Signature campaign, 70 strong US-backed people, they signed. But Sheikh Hasina did not succumb to the pressure. So I can say that stature of a statesman, of a very strong spine, standing up to the US and not giving in. So that means that even if more it asserts, her statements, her body language, everything, she can stand up to the US and does not accept the diktat. What do you think, sir?
Well, I would agree with you. This entire business of the Grameen Bank, NGO, freedom for NGOs to operate in Bangladesh, etc. These have been points of friction, and certainly Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has stood her ground. She is a redoubtable leader in her own right, and when it comes to dealing with countries like the US, she has shown what a formidable leader she is. So I would agree with you.
Wonderful. So now it's very crucial. Let's come to Bangladesh ties with Pakistan. What Pakistan is trying to play. There have been, it's the most critical relationship in the sense that Pakistan had committed excesses, so much so that it lost its eastern flank, that is then East Pakistan. Bangladesh came into being only 24 years of remaining together. So that's a great, and Pakistan is finding it very difficult to forget it, that is there. Nevertheless, the diplomatic ties exist. There have been ups and downs. Several times Pakistani diplomats in Dhaka, they have been declared persona non grata. They were sent. Pakistan had retaliated also. And Pakistan High Commission in Dhaka has come to notice, you would know very well, of using its undercover so-called diplomats into anti-India security activities, circulation of fake Indian currency note, and many more, because infiltrating through the borders and all. So they were declared, but now they have a full-fledged diplomatic relations, and I have no evidence, but I have no reason to doubt that the activities incompatible with diplomatic status of some of them must be continuing there. Number two, Pakistan has been inviting Sheikh Hasina to visit Pakistan, to show to the world. The new generation is perhaps trying to blame the Pakistani leadership, then leadership. It was responsible for dismemberment of the country. And very recently in London there was a conference where some British MPs and European MPs had called for declaring as genocide, formally declaring genocide of the Pakistani atrocities on Bangladeshis little before the liberation in 1970, 1971. So this is all coming up. So relying on your expertise and huge exposure on Bangladesh, I would like to educate myself if in the future Bangladesh-Pakistan relationship will be healthier than today. Bangladesh will forget, or it will continue to blame Pakistan for the atrocities because history is there and it cannot be altered, and Pakistan will continue to use Bangladesh for all the undesirable activities. So what is the present status?
You know, I'm tempted to narrate a slightly humorous anecdote of rather contemporary sort of relevance. You know, in Pakistan these days there has been a rather ugly spat between the former Prime Minister Imran Khan and the former Army Chief General Bajwa. And General Bajwa has given a lot of, has spoken extensively to the Pakistani media, and trying to justify whatever stand that he had taken when he was the army chief, because Imran Khan has expressed his displeasure or his disappointment that the Pakistan army, which had supported him, withdrew its support, and that is what led to the downfall of his government. So he's been bitterly critical of the Pakistan army, particularly under the leadership of General Bajwa. And General Bajwa, on his part, has been extensively briefing the media as to what were the circumstances that led to the army withdrawing its support to the Imran Khan government. And in this context, and this is where Bangladesh comes in. Imran Khan's government was overthrown in a parliamentary vote of no confidence. So the question at that point of time was, after the vote of no confidence, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan's party, he directed all his members to submit their resignations and leave parliament. And General Bajwa, in one of his recent interviews with the Pakistani media, has said that, he advised Imran Khan not to resign from parliament. And the example that he took was of the BNP in Bangladesh, which boycotted the 2014 elections.
Yes.
And so he was trying to advise Imran Khan that if he boycotted parliament, then his party would suffer the same fate as the BNP in Bangladesh. Now, this is at one level, as I said, somewhat humorous, but I think it does reveal a lot about where the political preferences of the Pakistani army lie as to which is the party that they were keeping an eye on in Bangladesh. And that also really is for those of us who know Bangladesh, it's no great secret. Now, again, Pakistan, as we all know, has never really been reconciled to the loss of its influence in Bangladesh, and has tried its level best to regain a foothold in that country. And the ISI has used Bangladesh in the past extensively as a staging post for mounting terrorist attacks in India, for trafficking in counterfeit currency, you name it. And it's only, frankly, post, in fact, these activities had reached a worrisome sort of level. In fact, they were at their peak, I would say, between, 2001 and 2006 or 7, thereabouts. And it's only after, the present dispensation came to power that there has been a very noticeable clampdown on these activities. So what the future holds for Pakistan-Bangladesh relations, my own feeling is that the older generation, there were still some people who had a certain amount of nostalgia for the old link with Bangladesh, with Pakistan. I'm talking of the
East
older
Pakistan,
generation.
East Pakistan.
That's right, in Bangladesh, who had this feeling of nostalgia.
Emotional connect.
An emotional connect, absolutely correct. But I think the younger generation doesn't suffer from any such hangover. They are all aware of the role played by Pakistan and and what happened in 1971, etc. So I think they do not suffer from any such hangover of the past, and they will possibly deal with Pakistan as they deal with any other country.
That's right. If I may add, you brought things to perspective, like you said about General Bajwa. You brought in November 23rd last year, when Bajwa laid down office after relinquished office as army chief. So I don't know what was the provocation for flirting with history at that point of time. He said, while addressing the media and set of army officers in the cantonment, he said that it was not the military which carried out the carnage of Bangladeshis. It was the political leadership which was. He was either trying to appease the army or deliberately trying to distort history. It did not augur well at all. He went there. Now, coming back to this generation, what you said, this is very relevant, very relevant. Now we see separatist tendencies in some parts of Pakistan, you would agree. Yeah. Whether it fructifies or it happens or not, we don't know. Let's leave it to history. So, for example, the separatism tendencies in Baluchistan, we see terror, we see violence with killing and everything, the posters, abroad activities going on, so many things. So now the writers in the media and the academic circles, they say that if Pakistan, the federal government continues to neglect those states which are suffering from discrimination, read Baluchistan here, then their fate could be like that of Bangladesh. So that means a set of people are thinking about, and they are trying to flag time and again that the government should heed to the annals of history and letters. Anyway, but thanks for putting it this, that what future stores Bangladesh-Pakistan relationship, only time will tell. But as of now, they are trying to bring in cricket and everything, but it's not helping, and it remains the same. Now I will come to the other part of our conversation is about the Indo-Bangladesh cooperation. So you have been posted there, you've been handling there. So let the viewers hear, and me too, about the fields of cooperation between the two countries, the recent cooperation. Like we've seen that our relationship, as we have been reiterating, at its best. So what are the new areas, whether infrastructural projects or anything? Just please run through us about it.
Well, frankly, as you're aware, my forte or my field of specialization is security.
Yeah, I would like to hear about
it's the diplomats who I think should speak more about economic cooperation. But I will say this, that, the relationship between India and Bangladesh, as it has evolved over the last couple of decades, I mean, this is a classic example where in a sense, security cooperation has had a cascading effect. It has had a catalytic effect on larger, cooperation in the economic sphere, etc. As you're aware, we had very serious security concerns about the activities of our insurgent groups from the northeast, Pakistan-sponsored terrorist organizations such as the Lashkar and the Jaish, etc. All these organizations had at one point of time, they had acquired, they were finding safe haven in Bangladesh, and they were using Bangladeshi territory as a springboard for carrying out attacks, etc. in India. So this was, in a sense, a major security concern for us. And by happy denouement, so to speak, or a happy turn of events, after the present government came to power in Bangladesh, they actually responded magnificently to addressing our security concerns. And there is no, I think, disputing that fact, and it cannot be brushed under the carpet. And by doing so, Bangladesh, let me put it this way, did not only, protect our security interests. I dare say that the action that the Bangladeshi security agencies took, they helped in protecting Bangladesh's own security as much as it helped in protecting India's security.
Very right.
Because as we mentioned, the activities of organizations like the Huji-B, the JMB, the JMJB, etc., Al-Qaeda, these organizations are no friends of Bangladesh, they are no friends of India, but they are no friends of Bangladesh either, or the larger region. So I think what really happened was that this fundamental transformation, if I may say so, in the tenor of the security relationship, that has had a very, very salutary effect on the larger bilateral relationship.
That's a good point.
And, you mentioned the economic cooperation. I think the kind of progress that economic cooperation between the two countries has made by leaps and bounds, it would have scarcely been imaginable, a couple of decades ago. And, whether it is purchase of power by Bangladesh from India, whether it is, import of power from Nepal and Bhutan and exporting it from India via Bangladesh to the northeast, whether it is trade, whether it is coastal shipping,
infrastructure,
inland waterway transport. There has been an absolutely spectacular flowering of the bilateral relationship. Wonderful. Railways, power plants, and this is just the beginning. If these initiatives are taken forward, I think they will have they will bring immense benefit to the people of Bangladesh, to the people of both countries. That, I think, is really the larger positive story of India-Bangladesh relationship in the last couple of decades.
That's right. You have summed up very well about the gamut of our relationship, the role played by the foreign powers and the cooperation, intelligence, security. You laid emphasis on that, and I, as a security and intelligence professional myself, and I 100% agree with you that not only what you said with accent is it's not only benefiting us, it is benefiting Bangladesh also and the region. So that cooperation is better, and let the mandarins of the policies on the development side and all this thing. So it was wonderful to have a conversation with you, Mr. Kumar. I've got no words to thank you. And thank you, dear viewers, for lending your ears and listening to us with patience. More we come in not so distant future. Thank you very much.